Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Fans Guide to Animation. I'm Anthony, and this is my co-host Daniel right here.
Hola, amigos.
Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we got a very special episode today. All of our episodes are special.
I feel like they're all special.
They're all special, but today is somehow special-er. And it's an animated series that is near and dear to our hearts in terms of comedy. It is arguably probably both of our favorite animated comedy series of all time.
Yeah.
It's up there, if not our favorite.
This is like a personal one. It deals with our friendship.
This is ingrained into our DNA at this point.
Yeah.
That's how close it is to us. It's on a molecular level, this show. And that is The Critic. It's a short-lived series that aired between 1994 to 1996, so olden times at this point. It lasted for one season on ABC and then one season on Fox. Yeah, it's a show that was so short-lived and so underutilized in what it could have done. Not only for the 90s period of decade, but if it was still airing today, oh my god, the things they could parody and everything.
Well, I mean, most of their jokes would be on Marvel movies at this point.
The show itself, it's entitled The Critic. For a reason. It stars John Lovitz as the character of Jay Sherman. He is a third-rate, considered that's what he dubbed himself as, the third-rate movie critic on cable TV. And he is miserable all the time for seeing terrible, terrible movies. His catchphrase is, "It stinks," and a slew of other catchphrases, but that's his main one.
It stinks. Hachi machi. How awkward.
He is known to be this character that is a curmudgeon.
Yeah, nobody really likes him.
And everyone makes fun of him. He's a short, stocky, bald guy, kind of like George Costanza. And he is just this character who, while on the surface level seems like a very, somebody you may not want to like at first, but at the same time, this guy's got heart.
He's not really
He's
likable.
Got soul, and what he loves to do is review movies, and that's what for better or for worse, he loves his job. He
loves to dislike things.
He loves to dislike things, and it's a passion that we both are obviously inspired by. This
is back when movie critics were kind of special. Like Siskel and Ebert, they had a show, and they were like
They were superstars, essentially.
Yeah, they were the source for whether you saw a movie was good or bad.
They were like an early version of a reality TV star. These are people that were just on that level of famousness. Like, they were just everywhere on newspapers, if you know what a newspaper is. They were on television.
Who would not know what a newspaper is?
I don't know, probably a toddler. I don't know.
Why?
I don't know.
Babies?
I don't know. Babies probably. Well, hey, some kids may just read tablet articles or something. I don't know.
I don't understand your logic.
I don't know. This joke.
I think it's a bit of a leap.
It went south very fast.
The deep south.
They were essentially just these very big personalities. They weren't just because they were reviewing movies, they were famous. No, they had these big personalities. They had character within themselves. They were people. They were two guys that were best of friends, as well as they could almost be enemies at some point.
Yeah, they were like frenemies.
They had passion within their arguments. They had just these all-around amazing discussions. If you can go on YouTube or anywhere, you can search out and seek their reviews out. Highly recommend to do so. Some of them are very poignant, and some of them are very heated, and some of them... these guys are just clearly a big inspiration for this show.
I mean, now, pretty much everybody's a film critic. There's not really any big personalities other than I guess YouTube personalities that are
there's a few out there that are up there, I guess, in terms of personality. You have your Jeremy Johnses and your
Chris
Chris Stuckmans. Just
the only like old school one that I can think of is like Peter Travers.
Oh, you know what? I personally like Leonard Maltin. I think he's
Leonard Maltin. Yeah,
I think he's a pretty swell guy. He seems like he will keep going forever. It seems like. But yeah, like the Film Critic was a big deal back then, especially in the 90s. I think that was like a big peak for film critics to really, or late 80s, early 90s, a big peak of the Film Critic fame. And this show clearly ran with that and created a character out of Jay Sherman as being almost like the anti-version of that. Someone who hated to be in this position, but at the same time loved it. It's a weird hate-love relationship that Jay Sherman had with film.
And it's more like a commenting on like just the nature of the industry in general.
I am a movie critic by trade, and until recently, I got paid to tell you people which movies merely stink and which ones you shouldn't screen near an open flame. Well, I'm putting the burden of lousy movies back on you. It's very simple. If you stop going to bad movies, they'll stop making bad movies.
But that's essentially the show in a nutshell. You have this character surrounded by a bunch of amazing supporting characters, which we'll get into a little bit more through the rest of the episode. But yeah, the main focus is on this Jay Sherman character that reviews terrible movies and all the random characters that come in and out of his life as well.
The second season does give you a little bit more personality, and you actually like learn a little bit more about him.
Right down to the character designs too. They give him
all
a
the character
revamp.
So it's nice to kind of see like a pullback from like him just being kind of
just a curmudgeon.
Yeah, a curmudgeon like most of the time. He'll do these like weird little voices sometimes, or he'll for whatever reason act like a woman.
You are quite a looker, Mr. S. Thank you, Ethel. You know, that analyst said I should stop doing this. He's a quack! Right as always, Ethel.
And
they do make a lot of fat and gay jokes at his expense too.
They do.
Like there's a lot. If you don't like fat or gay jokes, there's a lot.
Yeah,
it's at his expense.
Yeah, it's almost mean, but I think they can get away with it because he doesn't take any of it personally. And
even when it does affect him, it's like a Looney Tunes cartoon.
Yeah,
situation.
It's like over the top.
It doesn't get so mean-spirited to the point where it's uncomfortable to watch.
Yeah,
it's just funny though.
I also think it's like since his job like is to basically make fun of these movies, like the world is kind of like he kind of
basically it's like a karma situation.
Yeah, he's like getting his comeuppance.
Kids don't watch my show.
Well, they did. Our testing showed you reminded them of the Pillsbury Doughboy.
Don't! I find that so demeaning. Hey, look! The Doughboy and I happen to be ticklish in the same spot, but that doesn't give you the right to...
I think it's also funny, like, I guess we can dive in, maybe a few supporting characters.
Yeah. I don't know if I would say the most important, but one of the ones that has more screen time, I guess, is his boss, Duke Phillips.
Mr. Phillips, what do you say to those who claim this marriage is just an outrageous publicity stunt?
I say gaze into the hypnotic power of my evil eye. Is there a follow-up question?
How may I serve you, evil one?
He's basically like a southern Jack Donaghy.
That is a perfect description for him.
That's essentially the same thing.
That is perfect.
He's essentially Jack Donaghy, just more cartoony.
The world is made by those who control their own destiny. It isn't made by those who don't do. It's made by those who do, which is what made me the man I am. I do.
So yeah, he's like a really rich tycoon from somewhere in the South. I'm assuming Texas. And he runs the Phillips Broadcasting, which is essentially just Turner Broadcasting. So yeah, he runs all of that, but for whatever reason, he spends a lot of time with Jay. And he's trying to make his show better because Jay's ratings are constantly like really low because he is gross to look at. So Duke's a bit of an egomaniac. He
just a smidge.
He likes himself a lot.
Quizzabuck.
That's not a word.
Get Webster on the phone. Noah, how you doing? It's Duke. How much would it cost to make Quizzabuck a word? Great. How about that other word I invented? Dukelicious. No one's using it. What a Duke-tastrophe.
He's very in shape for being his age. And I wrote down a few pieces of trivia about Duke that I thought were interesting. So he has a secret love of cats, which is strange because he's a very manly man.
Pretty kitty calico, you know that I love you so. With your fur so soft and fair, I will touch you everywhere.
He worships the Pan the goat god, and the Phillips Broadcasting Company used to be called Duke Phillips Chicken and Waffles. So yeah, I really like Duke. He's really fun. Especially the dynamic between him and Jay.
Yeah, it's
like sometimes
weird,
it's like
it's
almost
very like
paternal, and sometimes he hates him, but
yeah, there's good chemistry there between them as boss and employee are concerned. It's
like at one point he makes Jay, or he forces Jay to be his secretary.
Yes.
What am I, your secretary?
Son, the only thing you have in common with my secretary are humongous breasts. Now take down my will.
Can do, Mr. P.
I think another, like, one of my favorite supporting characters is, this is, like, another contrast, because you have this rich billionaire broadcaster in Duke Phillips, and then you have this other, like, also a rich guy, a rich character, but he's an actor, and his name is Jeremy Hawk, and he is this dashing, cool-looking guy. He's got the Australian accent and everything. He's
essentially Chris Hemsworth.
Women love me no matter what I do. I've tried not shaving. I've tried not bathing. I've even tried talking like this.
Yeah.
It's just weird to see this contrast because this is on a friendship level versus the boss and employee.
Yeah, they're
level.
best friends.
They're best of friends, and even though if so even if Jay hates his own best friend's movies, it still doesn't hurt their dynamic, and he's just like. And Jeremy just tells him, "Well, that's Hollywood, mate. This is it. This is what I do." And he, they're just still friends going throughout the series. And I think one of my favorite things is that they actually go through tough times, like when Jay breaks up with somebody.
Oh yeah.
There is a moment in an episode where he gets broken up with, and Jay is like a very broken man. And he is eating buckets upon buckets of chicken, and then...
What do you mean there's no more chicken? My heart is shattered. Is a little extra crispy too much to ask? What about that big juicy one over there? I just want a little thigh.
You want a piece of me, fat boy? I'll spork your ass!
You wouldn't think a critic would be best friends
with a movie star
who's in like some of the worst movies that he considers are ever made out there.
Yeah.
So
what were some of his movies? There was one with Gandhi.
The Crocodile Gandhi.
Crocodile Gandhi.
Yeah.
I will bring peace between the Hindu and the Muslim. But first, a tasteful glimpse of me bottom for the ladies.
Yeah, that was great. And another one that deals more with Jay's personal life as opposed to his like work life is Alice, his girlfriend. She wasn't in the first season at all. But she is in the second season. She's really good.
Essentially, I think actually helps the Jay character develop. Because
it does.
He starts off, again, as a curmudgeonly
I think that might be
guy.
like why they added her, because Jay's was so unlikable in the first season that, well, let's give him somebody that likes him. Because like he did have other like
in the very
girlfriends
first episode,
or like
he had a girlfriend.
dates with other people. But now that you have this nice lady...
I wanted to show Penny that a woman could make it without a man. I'm smart. I'm good with numbers. I'm handy with a paintbrush.
Who likes him for him, as opposed to everybody else in his life who is always like taking the piss out of him. Even his own parents. Yeah, but Alice is actually she's a pretty big part of the second season. And
just a well-written character.
Yeah,
she could have easily been that stereotypical girlfriend character, but she's a lot more than that.
Yeah, they made her like a painter. Like she's a really good painter. I don't know why, but yeah, she like paints. What was it? Like
She essentially painted like masterpieces on her wall.
Yeah, and she's also Southern.
Look, I do not take charity. Daddy only gave me one thing: his pride.
His prod?
No, his pride.
His broad?
No, his pride.
So
a
lot of Southern people in New York. But yeah, she's like spunky, so she's got like a little bit of attitude, and she
is a very strong character, literally. Like
and she's also funny.
It's nice to meet you, sir. I'll never forget the speech you gave at my high school graduation. I just drank 2 bottles of tequila. My wife doesn't know I'm here. Any of you girls over 18?
And she has to just kind of like she expressed how being a single mom. That's another thing where she is just kind of maneuvering through New York, not knowing anybody. So that alone right there, like they didn't have to give her so much good backstory like that. That's just like really, especially for random animated show like this.
So, the last, I guess, couple that are important are Jay's parents. So, Jay was adopted. They originally thought they were getting a monkey, but it turned out to be Jay.
His original name was Mr. Bip.
And they're very rich, like ridiculously rich. I don't know why.
Well, there was that episode where they kind of like had those really like dark companies in the background, like a cigarette company.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
stuff.
They own a lot of
they
shitty
just
companies.
Own a lot of really messed up companies. They don't really work either, so I don't even know.
I mean, they're obviously retired.
I guess like
because they don't really do anything.
They just lounge in their mansion all the
so
time.
So his mom is named Eleanor, and she's essentially Katharine Hepburn.
Your skin is so smooth. What's your secret?
I scrub my face vigorously with the steel wool pad. Then I stick my face in boiling water for 2 minutes. Exactly.
So yeah, she's very old school, rich white person. She she wants to shoot all the poor people into space. So she's very unlikable. It's easy, but I guess that's kind of the point.
But eventually, they also give her.
They give her a little bit of something, yeah.
A little heart to her eventually, but yeah, she's pretty.
She's a pretty terrible person.
She's yeah.
And his dad, who is probably
the unsung hero of this show,
probably the most fun character in the entire show.
Like who'd have thought?
Mm-hmm.
Like just this random dad character isn't given much development, but he is clearly there to be a cartoon.
Yeah, he's
like an actual cartoon. Everyone is a cartoon technically, but he is cartoon within this world.
Yeah,
and it's nuts.
His name is Franklin.
I was wondering if you could tell me about the day I was adopted.
Oh, I remember it well. You had the cutest little arms and legs and a detachable headrest. Oh, wait, that was the day we picked out this chair.
And yeah, he used to be governor, apparently.
I don't know how that would have worked.
I don't know how that worked. He's senile, I guess you could. I guess that's what they were going for, but he's so crazy. It's hard to explain with it. I'm gonna put a clip in just to give you an example because it's hard to explain.
I hear you can say your name backwards. Is that true?
Nilknov.
What's your favorite food in the whole wide world?
Nilknov.
I think you're when we were talking before we started. I think you hit the nail on the head. He is essentially an old man freakazoid.
So yeah, it's a really fun addition to the show, and just to make it more cartoony.
They didn't overuse him as well either. I kind of wish they did.
I think they kind of underused him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he's so memorable when he's around and just kind of in the background, or just kind of pops up for a random one line or something.
Yeah. Well, in the first season, he was just more of like a one-liner kind of thing where he's just weird. But in the second season, like they made everything a little bit more cartoony.
I punch like a comet, then drink till I vomit. I'm Franklin the Sailor Man.
Alright, so I guess we could name a few of our favorite episodes. I really like the episode where Duke actually gets sick and he's diagnosed with a disease that is very rare.
It's unknown to mankind.
Yeah,
almost.
that they want to name it after him, but he already has another disease named after him.
Good news, sir. They've decided to name your fatal illness Duke Phillips disease.
I already have a disease named after me. My real name is Duke Scabies.
The episode starts out with him introducing this thing called Phillips Vision, where he somehow figured out how to go into older movies and like change things, like change the ending. Manipulate them however.
Here's how it works. Some pretentious weirdo director mucks up a great movie with a downer ending. I use a bunch of computers to put it back the way God intended.
One of the examples that they used was the Spartacus one, and I think I don't really love the Spartacus one, only for the ending. Like the rest of it's fine, but like when he says "I love you, Spartacus," it's just great.
I love you, Spartacus.
And obviously Jay being a lover of film, he doesn't want this to happen.
He wants Bambi to die.
Yeah, and then he actually that's when he like faints. It's like he has a heart attack or something. So yeah, that's when he gets diagnosed, and he has 4 years to live. And so
that could drive any person to depression, which is what we see.
So yeah, he eventually, like you said, gives up, and he gets like a Dr. Kevorkian type character to basically just kill himself. And then Jay says he's going to find a cure somehow for this disease that didn't really exist before.
Well, I'm off to find your cure.
Just what makes you so sure you can help me?
Because I've had every disease there is, except delusions of grandeur. And that is why God has chosen me alone to do his work on earth!
And yeah, Jay goes on this like journey to figure out
South America or something.
Yeah, he went to like this rainforest to get this really rare flower, and then he accidentally burns it all down. And he goes to this testing lab to buy a bunch of rats that he may or may not have wanted to eat.
I'm a film critic, and I'd like to buy a few hundred test animals.
You're going to eat them, aren't you?
No, I'm going to use them for medical experimentation. And then I'm going to eat them.
So yeah, at the end, he actually figures out and makes a cure himself. Like, I don't know how.
He
They
became
just
a
have
scientist at the end
they
of
just
the
have
episode.
him like with like little like test tubes like mixing things.
And he only had one rat.
It was a hamster.
Or hamster,
It wasn't
whatever
even a
it
rat.
was.
The secret ingredient that actually like got it to actually work is like his spit. So
He
like
sneezed into it.
Yeah, he sneezed into it and then it worked. So yeah, now Duke is cured.
1 week ago, I was looking at a death sentence. Now all I have to do is inject 8 little ounces of this into my eyeball every 4 hours.
Yeah.
And he's good. Yeah. So yeah, he gives Jay like one, I guess, wish. And then Jay's wish is to get rid of the Phillips vision from the beginning. So yeah, and then that's that episode. And I really like it. Like I said, they give Duke a lot of interesting things.
Yeah, and that also showed more of the dynamic between him and Jay.
Mm-hmm.
Going with a favorite episode of mine, I had one down, but you know what? I think this other one made me laugh and just actually, of course, more relatable, I guess. From Chunk to Hunk is the episode, and essentially
is this the marathon episode?
No, this is the one
one
where him and his son Marty go to a weight loss camp.
Oh
and
yeah.
everything. There is a great amount of fat jokes in this.
There's a lot of fat jokes in the entire series.
But this one is probably one of the most jam-packed ones.
It's the whole episode.
The whole episode is essentially one big fat joke.
Yeah.
But it's funny, trust me. The whole essential thing is Marty is going through some weight issues in school.
Mhm.
He can't do much in gym. He goes to this prestigious private school, like a United Nations school.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of these other, just different types of cultures and everything that also get made fun of from time to time.
Sometimes
some of
some of
are
them
probably
don't.
not politically correct
Yeah,
anymore.
some of them are a little sketchy now.
Yep.
But yeah, there's like other there's stuff in there that's fine. Like there's an Easter Island kid that they.
Literally
make
a
fun.
kid.
Even though Easter Island isn't an actual like country or anything,
But they always go back to that kid. That kid is around there all
He's
the
just
time.
got a big
It's
Easter
great.
Island head, and it's funny. Like,
Yeah, it's
and the
it's
principal
good fun.
for that school is.
Oh Christ, that guy is hilarious.
That guy is great.
You got to insert a clip of his laugh here.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that guy's laugh is hilarious. So yeah, there's moments where he is just doing these events at school and gym, and the coaches are making fun of him. He goes to Jay and he's just like, maybe I should lose some weight, and then he's just like, well, son, all right, well.
You know, son, that camp sounds like fun. You and I could spend some time together out in the country.
And maybe we'll lose weight.
Yeah.
Anyway, they go to this fat camp essentially, and there is an Oprah joke in this.
Yeah.
There is an Oprah joke. Again, fat jokes galore back when Oprah was kind of up and down in her weight in the 90s. But Marty and Jay go through both different versions of the camp. Like Marty found it very helpful. He is this weird skinny version of himself by the end of the camp. It's weird.
Yeah.
Like he's too skinny almost, where I'm like,
Yeah, they had to change the design of his character a little bit because
which is it makes sense.
You remember when they made Peter Griffin skinny?
Oh,
and he looked just
God.
wrong?
Yeah.
Because they didn't really do anything to his head?
Yeah.
That's just wrong.
They're both weird.
Yeah, they're both a little weird.
It's weird, but anyway.
Yeah, then he takes off his shirt at some point and he's like ripped.
Yeah, that's just this kid is 12.
Yeah.
It's weird.
It's weird.
So by the time the camp thing is over, Jay lost 2 pounds. But the biggest focus is on Marty, and again, this is where I say it's at least relatable. Losing weight's always been a thing in my life. I'm a big guy because not everybody can see me, of course, and it's a podcast. That'd be weird.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm a big guy, and I've had my weight issues before, and I've kept them under control for the most part. But I understood that as a kid.
Mhm.
When I saw this episode as a kid, it was just like, That's me, essentially. Not that I got that in shape or anything, but I've lost weight. I've kept it off in life, and I understand that it's a very relatable issue.
Yeah.
And it's understanding of the comedy to it, where it's just like, but I think it was a nice layer that, you showed what the character Marty went through. Just like, man, people make fun of me when I'm fat, but then they also consider me this best person ever when I'm thin. I think it's not good to be unhealthy at an unhealthy weight, but he does realize by the end of the episode that, well, he shouldn't not like himself, and be pushing himself to be something he doesn't want to be.
I'm Marty Sherman, and this is the real me. And the real me may be a little heavier, but he's a lot happier.
That's also relatable. It's a very nice lesson that you wouldn't expect to learn from a random show like this. It
was
nice. Gave, and it also fleshed out the character more too.
Because Marty didn't really get a whole lot.
Yeah,
he's just kind of like a nice kid.
Nice kid character.
Yeah, nice kid.
And he's not even that fat, which I think happens to him as well as to Jay throughout the show.
Yeah,
they're not that fat, but they make fun of him so over the top in so many over the top ways, where it's just like, it kind of makes it funnier. And that's pretty much that whole episode in a nutshell. Just one big fat joke, but it was a relatable little episode, and I enjoy it. It's funny, and it gave some nice heart to the ideas of just like, well, being yourself, and it's a good episode.
My other favorite episode is also a Duke one, because I just super love Duke, is when he decides to run for president.
Vote for Duke! Vote for Duke! Vote for Duke! Vote for Duke!
It's too close to home, man.
Yeah, it is relevant these days.
I'm gonna run for president.
But you're not a politician, you're a businessman.
All the better. I made a multinational media conglomerate out of a humble fried chicken franchise.
So Marty's running for class president, and Jay writes his speech for him. Marty wins, but once Duke hears about this, he decides that he's just going to run for president now, just because, really. He decides to run for president, and he wants Jay to be his speechwriter, but Jay doesn't necessarily want to, because just knowing Duke as a person, he doesn't necessarily put other people's needs in front of his ever. So it takes some convincing to get Jay to be his speechwriter. But he eventually brings him to... Duke has his own amusement park called Phillips Land, and within that he has the Hall of Presidents.
Oh, Christ.
And then he brings Jay there, and he has all the animatronics saying basically, Duke is the best, he would make a great president.
Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for Duke Phillips.
You made him say that.
And then they have a Bill Clinton one.
They made fun of Bill Clinton a lot. Again,
they do.
Bill Clinton was in office at this time. So.
Yeah, and he was just a hillbilly bear.
It's not Clinton. That's just one of your mechanical hillbilly bears.
Yeah, but so far nobody's noticed.
Jay says, okay. And yeah, basically Duke's whole platform for running is that he's rich and that Arnold Schwarzenegger needs to be tarred and feathered.
Now, why are you running?
Well, because it's time we had a president who's not beholden to special interests. I'm a self-made billionaire, and the only person who can bribe me is a bazillionaire. And I am the first candidate to call for Arnold Schwarzenegger to be tarred and feathered.
So yeah, meanwhile, Marty is now class president, and it's his job to make the float for the homecoming parade. And all of the other kids, they abandon him because it requires actual work. So Marty's there stuck doing it by himself. Yeah.
Why are so many kids dicks back then?
90s kids are assholes. But yeah, he has to make this whole thing himself. So he was going to make like a guy riding, like a Paul Revere kind of looking guy, where he's a guy riding a horse. But since he didn't have anybody else to help him, he didn't finish it. And the only thing that he got finished was the horse's ass. So it's just a float with a giant horse's ass on it. And then I forget how, but it caught on fire. And then it just kept going. Like they just let it like go with the parade while it was on fire.
Up next is the 8th graders float, built by class president Martin Sherman. The theme is a flaming horse's patoot.
So yeah, Duke tries to run Republican because obviously, but they wouldn't let him. So yeah, he holds rallies for the NRA and some Jewish synagogue, and then the National Association of Zombies.
I promise you zombies more raw human flesh than any president since Roosevelt.
So he picks his running mate, who happens to be Franklin.
This can only be great.
Yeah, Jay's dad. They go to the vice presidential debates between Al Gore and then some other guy, and then Franklin, and it does not go well.
Governor Sherman, an opening statement?
As the first black female head of the Ku Klux Klan, I'd like to say America stinks!
Oh, also the way they make him even more of a cartoon, a very subtle joke that I just chuckle at every time in that episode. When they're just like, and introducing the running mate is former Governor Franklin Sherman. And then when he pops up from the podium, he's just like,
Yeah, the other two are just standing there, and then he just like slowly rises
his little
with
glass of whatever he's drinking. So
like he always has
he's truly a cartoon character, and it's great.
And Governor Sherman, what would you do in the case of nuclear attack?
Then you sprinkle the chicken liberally with Old Spice.
But he gets Jay to fire Franklin because he's obviously crazy. But Jay doesn't want to, and then
it's his dad.
It's his dad. Yeah. He can't do it. So he fires Jay, and then from then he writes his own speech, basically exposing that he's like the worst person in the world.
Half of you states are in the toilet, and you're not coming out. New York, you know what I'm talking about. California, kiss your smoggy butt goodbye. New England, you're going back to old England.
Before, in order to get the woman's vote, he got the mom from Lost in Space, and he married her because he thought that would make him more of a family man. But at the end,
promised to bring everybody.
Everybody back from space, like as if that lady like believed it was true. But yeah, at the end, she comes in and she asks for a divorce, and for whatever reason, she has Lassie with her, and then Lassie begins to maul Duke, and then that's how the episode ends. And yeah, you don't really know if he wins or not. I'm assuming he doesn't. But yeah, I like this episode just because A, it's funny, but B, like they kind of predicted that this was gonna happen to us.
Oh man.
And yeah, it's pretty accurate.
The American dream is dead.
So yeah, I really like that episode. All the Duke episodes are fun. And yeah, there's also another one that comes in after this, where he actually falls in love with somebody. And that gives him like a little bit more character.
There's a little bit more like less over the top stuff with him and more real development there.
Mm-hmm. And
it's actually Alice's sister, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's Alice's sister.
I think another episode that I enjoyed quite a bit was more of the commentary based episode on Hollywood, and that is LAJ. Definitely another favorite of mine, where Jay goes Hollywood. He gets tapped to write. They talk about a Ghostbusters-like franchise in this show. I don't know why they didn't. They have every other movie. I don't know why they just didn't say Ghostbusters.
Yeah,
but it was Ghost Chasers in this episode. It
had to have been some kind of rights issue.
Probably. I mean, the whole point in this episode is Jay gets tapped to write this script for a particular studio run by this character named Gary Grossman, played by Billy Crystal.
Gary Grossman, head of the studio. Meet Jay Sherman.
Jay Sherman. One of the most revered film critics in America. I'd like to wring your pudgy neck. Your bad reviews have cost my Japanese masters over 1 billion yen.
He is essentially the classic cliche film producer that is just this money-grubbing, just very snarky and just all around. Basically think Ari Gold. Essentially, though, when he gets to Hollywood, Jay figures out, oh yeah, this is how Hollywood works. People buy out your scripts, which is great, but they don't make them. They just have them sitting there.
Mm-hmm.
Because there is this joke where he does get the script and he's just like, hey, what are you doing with it? And he's just like, I'm also putting it in this pile where the scripts are also too good.
What are you doing with my script? I'm putting it with the others that were also too good. Look at this. A lesbian love story, the biography of some clown named Galileo, Revenge of the Nerds 4. What are you doing here, you beautiful thing, when you could be making me a mint?
But right there is such ahead of its time commentary where it's just like, I believe that.
Yeah, it's like
that is probably something that happens to this day.
Yeah, they make the movie. Yeah, especially today. Are you kidding?
Yeah,
like it seems like they're making the movies.
Shit franchise, Revenge of the Nerds 4. Actually, has that happened yet?
But
over like original or at least interesting scripts, and that couldn't be further from the truth. Like it's just like
make the movies that'll make you money.
Like, it's crazy how
then they buy the script so that way the other studios can't have it.
Exactly. When he actually gets tapped to write this movie, instead of just like writing an original piece or anything, he's just kind of stuck with his gig with the studio. He gets treated kind of okay, but not really. Again, everyone treats him like garbage. All of his office, down to his chair, used to say Andrew Dice Clay. I don't know why. I guess Andrew Dice Clay was fun to make fun of back in the 90s, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, like he just gets this like office and he's got a whole staff behind him. Anyway, though, the episode continues on. He starts writing Ghost Chasers 3. He invites his son Marty on the trip to LA with him because they had to travel to LA. And that's where you also see the culture and good commentary there too, where as Marty puts to Jay, like...
Dad, I thought you came here to write.
I am writing.
No, you're not. You're just acting like a showbiz phony.
Oh my God, you're right, son. I've forgotten why I came to Hollywood. To write the sequel to a movie I didn't think they should have made in the first place.
That's another bit of commentary where I'm like, I wonder how many people go through that crisis every day in Hollywood.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, that's the problem with Hollywood. Like, there's so many opportunities, but it's not the opportunities that you're necessarily looking for.
And then from there, we have him start to write, and another funny throwaway joke is just like, he's just like, just typing away, and then he's just like, it feels like some sort of hand has just come up and inspired me. And then you just see Satan.
Excellent. Another sequel on the way.
So when the movie is actually finished, he's written it, and then he goes to Gary Grossman, and then there is one of the best over-the-top scenes in the whole series, to me at least, where he gives him the script, and then he's just waiting there in his office the whole day, and it's nighttime by the end, and then he just goes up and sees Gary out there and is getting into his car, like, sneaking out. He's just like, hey, what'd you think of my script? And then he's just like...
Listen, I can take any criticism in the world, but I want an honest opinion.
Honest opinion. Hey, look! They're washing Bo Derek like a horse.
And then from there, he just bolts in his car, and Jay chases him. They have a car chase. There's a car chase in this. It makes no sense, but it's funny, and it just keeps going. They crash, and then he just hunts him down. He's just like, what did you think of my script?
Now, what did you think of my script?
It was excrement.
Did you say it was excellent?
It was crummy.
Did you say it was yummy?
It was a bilious piece of dirt that made me cry out in pain.
Did you say it was a brilliant piece of work and you'll fly me out to Spain?
Like Jay would just be not taking the criticism, even though he himself is a critic. So that's even funnier. It's a nice layered joke there. Like, it just, by the end, it's still made. And that's the saddest part in commentary right there, is that even though some people maybe try their best to try to make the best of a bad situation, writing maybe a script that they don't want, the movie ends up being terrible. There's a giant Ed Koch. I don't know who Ed Koch is.
Forgot about that.
How am I doing?
I think that's some of the series that part of the series that is great. Like, they make references to things that happen, which it kind of does date the show, but it's still funny.
Like I don't understand who the person was, but the timing of the joke, the way it's expressed.
I know more about Ed Koch because of this than actual
actual history in life.
Yeah, same thing with The Simpsons. Like, there are so many like things that I remember as Simpsons things that just kind of like taught me about things that were happening in the world.
It's such a brilliant commentary that is sadly so true for the time and decade it did it in. This was like unheard of, this type of deep, like, hard-hitting comedy. Maybe you can find something maybe like an SNL back in the day.
Yeah, there was
something.
There wasn't very many like
this was just a hit, direct hit at Hollywood.
So, at least in my opinion, the best episode in the entire series is the Siskel and Ebert episode, right?
Yep, hands down.
Yeah,
hands down.
Basically, like, this show is based on, like, loosely, like, Siskel and Ebert and their whole thing. Like, they were popular, like, so this show wouldn't exist without that.
Yeah, their popularity and their cable television show and just everything.
Yeah,
it's probably owed to them.
So they came in as the characters,
and they were actually really good.
Yeah,
like, they were not stilted in performing. They actually had good chemistry in just voices. Like, so that was great.
So the episode is It starts out with Jay going to the Oscars. It's the Oscar episode, I guess. And first he presents, best documentary or something like that.
Yeah.
But he eats the Oscars, but it turns out they're made of chocolate. And then he can't fit through a little door during their musical number.
They have a musical number for critics.
Yeah. And he can't get out of the door and he's stuck.
The critic is a mystery. No one knows what he thinks except for Jay Sherman, who always says.
So, yeah, on the airplane ride back, they all happen to be on the same airplane. But yeah, that's when Siskel and Ebert, they get in a fight over the Rain Man movie. Snowman.
The sequel.
The sequel, Snowman.
Well, I thought that film was very poignant, particularly the scene where Tom Cruise walks around Las Vegas with a bucket full of his brother.
Oh, come on, Gene. That was just another pointless sequel that didn't have to be made.
This from the man who liked Benji the Hunted?
Hey, you like Carnosaur.
Well, I'll bet you'll like this. Hasta la vista, porky.
Cue ball in a side pocket.
So yeah, they get in a fight over that, and then they get in like a literal fist fight where they start punching each other, and there's like this big fight scene like you would see in like a Mission Impossible movie, and then they roll out onto the wing of the plane and they're fighting on the wing of the plane. It's just funny because it's Siskel and Ebert. So this is them breaking up. They aren't going to do.
After you have a fight on the wing of a plane, I'm pretty sure it's over for a bit at least.
Yeah, so they officially are looking for replacements for each other. And Jay obviously is one of those, otherwise it wouldn't be in the show. But they interview a couple people. One of them has their face melted off, and then the other one just happened to be Satan again.
Tim Allen gives that same likable performance we always love, once again proving Disney Pictures have the magic touch that may not win awards, but keep America smiling. How is that?
You're Satan, aren't you?
You win another round, Siskel, but we shall meet again.
So Jay wants to be essentially the new Siskel or the new Ebert, and that's when he goes and sings this song about how he wants to be the next one. Nothing's Gonna Stop Me.
Yeah,
and
I think it's great.
Yeah, it's actually a really good song.
I'll be the biggest thing the world has ever seen. When I team up with Roger or Gene, nothing's gonna stop me now. Hey, Mr. Siskel, look at me. Hey, Mr. Ebert.
Hey, I'm Therian here.
Nothing's gonna stop me
So yeah, this episode is basically a musical because they had the song in the beginning at the Oscars, and then there's this one, and then there's another one later.
That's right.
So this episode is a musical. So I like it. It's good.
Yeah.
So yeah, Jay starts stalking them essentially.
He wants to get that job, and things get very funny and very weird.
Yeah, they both want him, so they both kind of like test him out. When he's testing with Gene Siskel, he starts putting like a little wig on him, and then he puts like a glasses on him.
He starts off by telling him too. He's just like,
"Wait, something's wrong. You don't look right. Put on this wig."
What?
Now, the glasses.
You're making me look like Roger.
Just do what I say.
Damn it, Gene, I'm not Roger. I'm never gonna be Roger. I wish I were.
Just runs around in a circle.
Runs around in the wig and everything, and just like, yeah, it just gets funnier that way. Then the Roger bit happens. Roger just is more creepy in that one, where he's just like...
Here's Gene and me on Splash Mountain. Here we are winning the three-legged race. And here's the Halloween we went as Ernie and Bert.
Shouldn't we get to work?
Sure, Gene. Anything you say.
You called me Gene.
I'm sorry, Gene. I'll never do it again. Gene?
Oh, my name is Jay, and I need some air. Oh, I'm not Gene.
After that is when Siskel and Ebert actually start missing each other, and then they have this song, like when they're all both on like a balcony, and they're singing to the other person as like a duet.
The moonlight on his hair.
The twinkle in his eye.
The way he said thumbs up.
The way he said thumbs down.
The way he said goodbye.
After that, Jay decides that he wants to get them back together because they belong together, because they're a team. So he calls both of them.
Oh, my favorite bit was so sad, but it was funny at the same time, was you see Roger on a seesaw, and he's just like...
Oh, yeah.
It's just like, aw.
But yeah, so he calls both of them pretending to be Woody Allen.
Yeah, Gene, this is Woody. Soon you eat, Daddy's on the phone.
So yeah, they both come to like the same spot, and then...
They essentially make like a Sleepless in Seattle joke there.
Yeah.
Like the whole building thing, the lights on the building with little heart. And,
yeah, that's right.
Oh, this is just a rip-off of Sleepless in Seattle.
Which was in itself a rip-off of An Affair to Remember. Which wasn't that good of a movie to start with. Hey, I guess we do make a good team.
Come here, you big lug.
So yeah, after that they make up, and then they get back together, and then it says the end. And then at the end of the episode, it's funny because they pan back to them sitting in like their chairs like they do on the show. And
like they just watched the episode.
Yeah, like they just watched the episode, and then they review the episode. But yeah, that was that episode. I really love that episode.
It's got heart, it's got musical stuff.
Yeah.
It's
and the fact that they actually
comedy.
got like Siskel and Ebert to like
And the
do
other
some of
bits,
these weird things.
Like, can you imagine giving a script to them? Like, because again, this was at probably like still the peak of their fame back then.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just like, hey guys, we have this random ass little show on Fox right now. Would you all want to come in and be yourselves and sing and just do weird parodies? And I'm sure if they read the script, they're like, the fuck?
Yeah, I mean, they are critics for a living, so they must obviously
Reading
they
the
thought it was
script must
good.
have been very assuring to them in some way for them to say, yeah, we'll sing all this random stuff. Yeah, we'll say all this.
Yeah.
Fighting on the wing of a plane? Sure, that's fun for our character versions of ourselves. Yeah. Clearly the people behind the show cared. Like, the basics of their show is about a film critic. They clearly loved film and passions about it, and just...
It legitimizes it.
Yeah,
you know?
and it was great to see that. Even though if this show was short-lived, it was great to see that they actually appreciated, you know, all sides of Hollywood.
Mm-hmm. And it was made well. So, and people recognized that at the time. I don't know if they really... Like the audience critics, obviously didn't, because it got canceled.
Twice.
Yeah.
Some of it is dated, like, you know, like the Bill Clinton stuff or the Ed Koch guy or something,
Mm-hmm.
you know. They made fun of Bill Clinton a lot, now that I think about it.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
just stuff like that. Like, it's poking fun at all things 90s back in that era, and it's great. Some of it will be remembered, some of it probably not so much. It's timeless, even though if it's dated. It's a weird mix of a time capsule, yet timeless feel to it.
I think people who really like comedy or really like animation know about The Critic.
It's
really
gotten
high
its
up
due.
there.
Yeah, it's gotten its due because of the DVD
but for like the
release.
normal, the way we originally found it was late night on Comedy Central when I was a teenager. I think it had to have been like 11, 12, like 1 o'clock at night or something like that. And then I happened to cross by it, and then I liked it, so I kept watching like every night, because I think it came out every weeknight or something. So I kept watching, and then I told you about it, and I'm like, you got to see this.
Yeah, I remember at the time I was living at my aunt's house, and shortly after that you told me about it, and then somehow the DVD came out.
Yeah, the DVD came out
And then you
around
came to my
when
aunt's
I actually
house.
started to see it.
And holy crap, I remembered seeing it when I was younger, when it actually aired, considering we were teenagers when the DVD came out. But I never remembered what it was. And then when you brought that DVD set, I'm just like, this guy looks familiar. It's a shame, though, that it didn't last. Like, in all honesty, there was like, we were talking before this, it was labeled as a Simpsons clone. Because it is, a lot of the people involved here are from The Simpsons, the showrunners, Al Jean and Mike Reese. They were big part of the Simpsons team when it first started.
Yeah.
And they went on to make this, and then they brought in a lot of talent in terms of voice acting. It didn't help that all that in common with The Simpsons already, And for those of you may or may not remember, Jay did a cameo on the Simpsons episode once back in that same era in the 90s.
Yeah? Well, I won the belching contest at work.
Very nice, Homer.
And it was a good episode.
Yeah, and he also provided so many other characters for The Simpsons, like Artie Ziff and stuff like that.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it makes sense, probably. Mm-hmm. It doesn't make much sense now when you really analyze the show, because it couldn't be further from what The Simpsons is.
Yeah, it's
Simpsons
way
is
different
about
vibe.
Americana and family life, and
this was
more of an adult comedy.
I guess I could see their point when they say it's a Simpsons clone, because once Simpsons came out and then it started to become really popular, that's when they started to make these like more adult animated TV shows, because they didn't really exist before.
Well, even then though, I always found that funny too, because looking back, I remember my mom and dad were a little hesitant about me watching The Simpsons because it was a bad influence show, and I'm like, looking back at those first seasons, what?
There's nothing.
There was nothing there.
Yeah.
Don't have a cow, Mother.
In its tone, its characters, everything about it really is not, aside from the jabs they make at each other or the crossover episode, it really isn't. It could be furthest from The Simpsons in terms of its comedy style and characters. And
I could tell that it's written by the same people, because the humor is a little similar, but it's completely different subject matter. So it's
but that's what they were saying back then. It seemed like that it's just another Simpsons. Don't watch it.
But yeah, the show is great. I think it'll always be great. And the theme music was done by friggin' Hans Zimmer. Friggin' Hans Zimmer.
It's low-key one of the best themes
so good
ever. It's got such a nice, just very floaty, jazzy feel to it.
Yeah, it feels like whenever I think New York, that's the music that pops into my head. I don't know how they do it, but it's like it's jazzy, like you said, but it's like lively, kind of like the city is, and it's super good.
And other lesser known at the time people like Brad Bird and Judd Apatow were involved with the show.
Mm-hmm.
So things like that, little morsels of tidbits that we figured out over the years, is just like, no wonder this show was just well done. There was a lot of good people involved. I think another showrunner, like Steve Levitan, he's definitely responsible for a lot of sitcoms and stuff. I think like Modern Family and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And just a lot of great guest stars, like I mentioned earlier, like Billy Crystal. Queen Latifah showed up. This was
that's right.
She was like...
It was like a random
just
Queen
a
Latifah.
Really random... It was her.
Baby, this is the Queen. I dub thee my Earl of Ecstasy.
Queen Latifah?
Wait a minute. This isn't Denzel Washington's head.
So yeah, you had random guest stars like that popped up and
all the people who weren't involved, they just made fun of.
Yeah.
They did not hold any punches against Marlon Brando.
Then if we gotta mention Orson Welles.
Oh,
like
Orson.
we all know he's dead.
Orson.
But that's there's a couple bits.
Rosebud. Yes, rosebud frozen peas. Full of country goodness and green penis. Wait, that's terrible.
But there is an episode where Jay's parents get lost in a flight to an island, and they are presumed dead. But they have Orson Welles give their will. And then he just doesn't even really say the will. He just kind of starts advertising for Mrs. Pelt's fish sticks.
And remember, there is no fish stick like Mrs. Pelt's.
This isn't a commercial.
I know. That was just a declaration of love. Yes. Oh, yes. They're even better raw.
And so jokes like that make no fucking sense, but they're so great. And the final joke I gotta mention... the penguin. There is a penguin in this episode because he is a pilot. A terrible pilot. And he's the kind of the reason why they crashed, actually.
Yeah.
Essentially, they have a bumpy turbulence moment. Franklin gets up.
I'll go have a word with the captain. A penguin? And he's been drinking. Wait a minute. Penguins can't fly. Penguins can't fly!
The joke is so layered, you just don't even know where to go with that.
Mhm.
Like,
there's so many things in this I quote. Like
we can't even fit it all in one
Yeah.
episode, and we're clocking it over an hour at this point. So
Mhm.
there is so much of this show. The fact that we have this much material for only a mere 26 episodes of a show, that's impressive. It's brilliant comedy, and I think it honestly should be like sought after. I don't think any streaming service has it, unfortunately. Well, the DVD is fairly easy to come by.
Yeah.
It's not. I don't think it's out of print. I think it's fairly easy to find it.
So yeah, that was The Critic, and we love it. We will forever love it. FGApodcast.com is the website. There you can find links to all of our stuff. We're on Apple Podcasts. We're on YouTube. YouTube links in there. Or you could just go to the website and you can listen on the website. And yeah, I am Daniel. That is Anthony. And
okay, now let's go rob that bank.
Well, Gene, I thought some of the parodies were funny, but a lot of the show just didn't make any sense.
That's it. We're out of here.